It was the moment no one in the gospel world saw coming. For decades, Donnie McClurkin, the Grammy-winning pastor and singer with a soul-splitting voice, kept his peace. He sang through scandal, preached through pain, and lifted millions through the lowest valleys of their lives. Meanwhile, on the other side of the evangelical world, Donnie Swaggart, the controversial son of the once fallen but still powerful televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, continued to preach with fire and brimstone, but also with the weight of his family's long controversial history dragging behind him like a storm cloud. 2 men, 2 pulpits, 2 legacies, and now, a collision that no one expected, but everyone felt coming. It began quietly, a whisper in the gospel community. Rumors that Donnie McClurkin, who had long remained silent on the bizarre antics, unchecked power, and aggressive theology coming out of Baton Rouge's family worship center, was no longer willing to hold his tongue. For years McClurkin had been asked to speak on the Swaggarts, especially Donnie, and for years he deflected, choosing grace and caution over conflict. But something had changed. The breaking point? A fiery sermon by Donnie Swaggart in early 2025, where he not only condemned contemporary gospel music as a slippery slope to hell, but specifically named several artists. Among them, Donnie McClurkin. "I don't care how many Grammys you've won, if you sing compromise you're not anointed. You're deceived," Donnie Swaggart barked from his pulpit, his finger pointing toward the camera, his voice booming with self-righteous fury. "There's a difference between preaching holiness and performing for the world." The clip went viral. It was shared by thousands. But the most notable thing? Donnie McClurkin saw it, and this time, he didn't stay silent. 3 days later, McClurkin stood at his own pulpit in Perfecting Faith Church, his face serious, his spirit heavy. And then he said the words that would spark the firestorm. "God is not mocked, and neither is his true church." When men speak out of their own bitterness, masking it as boldness, they hurt the very people they claim to save. The congregation was silent. You could hear a pin drop, and then, Donnie added, "Donnie Swaggart, I've prayed for you, I've wept over your family, I've seen your father fall, and I've seen him get back up. But you, sir, have chosen to weaponize the pulpit, not to heal but to harm. You've slandered God's people long enough." The internet exploded. TikTok, YouTube and Instagram lit up with videos comparing the two Donnies. Clips of McClurkin's rebuke hit millions of views overnight. Gospel blogs declared it a holy showdown. Even secular media began covering the growing tension. But this wasn't just about theology. No, it went deeper. Behind closed doors, McClurkin had long struggled with the tension between grace and truth. As someone who himself had been vulnerable about his personal battles, especially his past experiences with childhood molestation, identity struggles and loneliness, he had extended compassion to broken people. He knew what it meant to be wounded and still worship. But Donnie Swaggart's brand of black and white condemnation had finally pushed him over the edge. Sources close to McClurkin reveal that the tipping point wasn't just the public insult, it was what he discovered privately, a letter from a young man who had visited Family Worship Center during a revival week in 2024. That young man, dealing with depression and thoughts of suicide, had been publicly rebuked by Donnie Swaggart for asking questions about grace. "He called me weak," the letter read, "said I was trying to make excuses for sin, but I wasn't. I just needed help." That letter broke McClurkin, and it sealed his decision to act, not just speak. What happened next shocked even the closest observers. McClurkin launched a private coalition of black pastors and worship leaders under the banner, Voices for Healing, Not Harm. Though initially quiet, it soon became a force within gospel circles, focused on addressing abusive preaching, theological arrogance, and cult-like manipulation within charismatic churches. The mission? To shine a light on what McClurkin called weaponized ministry, preaching that shames instead of saves. Without ever naming him again, the entire structure and rhetoric of Donnie Swaggart's ministry was put under the microscope. Suddenly, former members of the Swaggart congregation began speaking out. Some recounted tales of being excommunicated for minor infractions. Others said the environment at Family Worship Center felt more like a spiritual prison than a place of peace. One former worship leader even claimed that during a private counseling session, Donnie Swaggart yelled, "Either you submit to this ministry or you walk into hell." The clip went viral when leaked. McClurkin remained publicly silent, but his movement grew stronger. And then came the most shocking twist. A leaked Zoom call showed Donnie Swaggart angrily addressing his internal staff. "Donnie McClurkin is a liar. He's bitter. He's compromised. He has no right to speak on holiness when he's been dancing with the world for years." The backlash was swift. Pastors across America defended McClurkin. Gospel artists like Tasha Cobbs, Fred Hammond and Kirk Franklin posted in solidarity. Fred Hammond tweeted, "Say what you want, but Donnie McClurkin is the real deal. He's lived through what would have killed most men. You don't come at a warrior like that unless you're ready for war." Meanwhile, McClurkin's church saw record attendance. His sermons, now posted weekly, saw millions of views globally. But rather than continue the feud, McClurkin surprised everyone. He called for prayer. "We don't fight fire with fire," he said from his pulpit. "We fight with truth, love, and intercession. Donnie Swaggart, I'm praying for you." Still, behind the scenes, tensions rose. Legal analysts began to suggest that if defamatory comments continued from the Swaggart camp, McClurkin could sue. But that wasn't his goal. He wanted repentance, reform, restoration. Yet the deeper people looked into Donnie Swaggart's ministry, the more questions emerged. Financial documents leaked by anonymous former staff suggested questionable tithing schemes, aggressive donor tactics, and internal policies that gave the Swaggart family almost unchecked control over millions. McClurkin's team didn't comment directly, but his next sermon said it all. If a shepherd eats better than his sheep while they starve, he's not a shepherd. He's a wolf. By now, the gospel world was officially split. Team McClurkin, Team Swaggart, and in the middle, thousands of believers wondering what happened to unity. But perhaps the most powerful moment came when McClurkin sat down for a tell-all interview with a Christian news outlet. For the first time, he spoke without restraint. "I kept quiet out of respect. I watched what happened with Jimmy Swaggart in the 80s. I saw the damage, the fallout, and when Donnie rose up, I hoped he'd lead differently. But he's become harsher, not holier. He doesn't preach Christ, he preaches himself." Asked why he decided to speak now, McClurkin's voice cracked. "Because too many are hurting in silence. Too many are being silenced in churches that are supposed to be sanctuaries. If I have to lose invitations, lose popularity, or lose support to protect the wounded, so be it. I've already lost more in life than people will ever know. I'm not afraid anymore." The interviewer paused. "If Donnie Swaggart is watching this, what would you say to him?" McClurkin didn't hesitate. "Repent, not for me, not even for the public, but for your own soul. You can't lead God's people while carrying unhealed wounds and unchecked pride." By now, the church world was trembling. Family Worship Center issued a vague press release accusing McClurkin of sowing division, but didn't address the specifics. Some of Swaggart's followers doubled down, others began to leave. Even secular outlets like CNN and Vice began running exposés on the Swaggart legacy and the growing rift with McClurkin. Then came the next bombshell. An anonymous source leaked a private audio tape, allegedly of Donnie Swaggart in a closed-door meeting, mocking McClurkin's past struggles with sexuality. "He talks about deliverance but lives in denial," the voice said. "Donnie ain't holy, he's haunted." The backlash was instant. LGBTQ+ advocates condemned the tape. Mental health professionals called it spiritual abuse, and even longtime supporters of the Swaggart ministry began to distance themselves. In response, Donnie McClurkin once again took the high road. "I've never claimed perfection, but I've experienced grace. If God can use me, he can redeem anyone, including my brother Donnie Swaggart. I hold no hate, only hope." But behind that hope was a steely resolve. Sources say McClurkin is now quietly working with denominational leaders to establish accountability guidelines for charismatic churches, particularly those run by family dynasties like the Swaggart. He's not trying to take anyone down, one insider shared. He's just trying to stop the bleeding. And, as of now, thousands have joined the mission. This was never just a clash between two Donnies. This was a reckoning, a warning, a revival. One rooted not in scandal, but in the belief that even in the darkest corners of ministry, truth can still shine. The storm had reached its peak, but the eye was only just forming. After weeks of back and forths, exposes, sermons, leaked recordings and media scrutiny, a new development sent shockwaves through the religious world. Donnie McClurkin was planning a closed-door meeting with church leaders from across denominations to discuss spiritual abuse, doctrinal manipulation, and the unchecked power of inherited pulpits. And the Swaggarts were the unspoken elephant in the room. Inside sources revealed that over 35 prominent pastors, including those from megachurches, gospel artists, youth ministry leaders, and trauma counselors, received direct invitations. The goal? Not a witch hunt, but accountability, transparency, healing. Among the invitees, names like Bishop T.D. Jakes, C.C. Winans, Marvin Sapp, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and even figures from outside the traditional gospel circle like Lecrae and Jackie Hill Perry. Some declined, fearing backlash. Others accepted privately, not wanting to be seen choosing sides. But one thing was clear, the McClurkin-led movement was no longer just a whisper, it was a force. Meanwhile, over in Baton Rouge, tensions inside Family Worship Center were boiling over. Donnie Swaggart was livid. Multiple staff members leaked that he had ordered an emergency board meeting, where he allegedly shouted, slammed his hand on the table, and accused the entire black church of betraying him. Some staffers walked out, others stayed silent. Behind closed doors, fractures within the Swaggart dynasty were now becoming visible. According to a leaked internal memo, Gabriel Swaggart, Donnie's son, expressed concerns about the tone and direction of the ministry. He warned that personal attacks on respected figures like Donnie McClurkin could permanently damage the family name. Donnie reportedly shot back, "I don't care what the world thinks, this is God's work, and if you're not with me, you're against me." Gabriel went quiet. But just days later, his wife Jill Swaggart was mysteriously removed from her worship role during a televised service, sparking rumors of internal punishment. The public, however, was beginning to turn. Gospel Twitter was ablaze with commentary. McClurkin just did what pastors should have done years ago. Donnie Swaggart tried to tear down a man who's already been through fire and came out gold. This ain't a beef, this is a reckoning. And then, Donnie McClurkin did the unthinkable. He invited Donnie Swaggart to meet, privately, one-on-one, no cameras, no press, just two men, two pulpits, one room. The invitation was extended through a public open letter, posted on McClurkin's social media account. "I'm not your enemy, I'm your brother. If there's disagreement, let it be discussed in truth and grace, not through microphones and accusations. Let us meet as men of God, not to destroy, but to heal." Donnie McClurkin. The reaction? Deafening. Followers begged Donnie Swaggart to accept. "Sit down with him, talk. You don't have to agree, but you have to be accountable," one woman commented. But Donnie Swaggart refused. Instead, he responded during a live service with a chilling dismissal. "I don't negotiate with compromise. I stand on truth, period."